Universalist congregation with no geographical boundaries. We believe in cultivating curiosity and transformation that is rooted in profound love. The COVID-19 pandemic has irrevocably shaped how connections are formed in congregations across the United States and the world. The Church of the Larger Fellowship is committed to being a resource within Unitarian Universalism and beyond. From worship to covenant groups, from classes to pastoral care, and from our monthly magazine Quest to our online community hub and our letter writing ministry, we have found ways to build connection and community even through the screen. We have been a model for ministry on the margins, providing services for isolated Unitarian Universalists, becoming a spiritual lifeline for our members in prison. The CLF supports the ministries of those who hold target identities: Blue, Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism; Trust, Transgender Religious UU Professionals Together; and Drum, Diverse Revolutionary Unitarian Universalist Multicultural Ministries, just to name a few. We know better than anyone how deep and meaningful connections can be formed, even from a distance. Unitarian Universalists have faced many challenges in these times, and we continue to persevere and fight for justice and equity for all people, especially during moments of crisis. We are proud to be a leader in this faith movement, and we invite you to get involved in our ministry. We strive to be a place where anyone from anywhere can find spiritual refuge anytime they need it. Welcome to the Church of the Larger Fellowship. We are so excited to bring you an all-new episode of The VUU. The VUU is a weekly Unitarian Universalist talk show discussing important faith-based topics from an anti-racist, anti-oppressive, and multicultural perspective. Every Thursday for the past 7 years, we have welcomed guests from every corner of the world. Our guests are writers, scholars, activists, and religious thought leaders who are shaping Unitarian Universalism and society for the 21st century and beyond. I hope today's show inspires you. Hope it builds your faith. Hope it gives you perspective to see the power of Unitarian Universalism at work in your life. Enjoy the message.
Greetings, beloved. Welcome to another episode of Voices of Unitarian Universalism, also known as the VUU, sometimes as the VUU. It is so good to be here with you, and here for a host roundtable of a different color, because we are going to have a little dance party in a bit, to denote the fact that we are operating under a hostile government takeover. I'm the Reverend Dr. Michael Tino. I serve as 1/3 of the lead ministry team of the Church of the Larger Fellowship, this Unitarian Universalist congregation without borders or walls that brings you this talk show every week. I am a fat, white, almost bald, dude-ish kind of person, wearing a purple and black floral shirt and sitting in front of a bookcase with a chalice. I am coming to you from Peekskill, New York, on the land of the Kitchewan, Wappinger, and Munsee Lenape people in the Hudson Valley, just a little bit north of New York City. And it is gray here today. It is gray. And Darby is here. Hi, Darby. Tanya is here. Hi. It was like this bright sunny spring, like the first daffodil in my front yard bloomed yesterday, and like today just went like gray, like not even grayscale.
Dude, it's still March.
Just pick a color gray, and everything is that color today.
Yeah.
And I was so enjoying the sun Yesterday it was sunny and 70 degrees and beautiful, and it was so depressing when I went outside and it was so gray today. And there is some sort of front coming through. Like, I don't know, it's not supposed to rain, but there's some sort of front coming through because my joints are like weather. So I am that old. I am old. My joints predict weather, and it is good to be with you.
Well, it snowed in Chicago yesterday, so it's very.
Oh no, no! Like maybe that'll be rain when it gets here. Dante Hilliard, how are you today?
Oh, Reverend Michael, I am living my best life in the middle of this political chaos that Orange Julius has stirred up. I'm here in Baltimore, Maryland, Dante Hilliard, learning fellow for worship at the CLF. So excited to be with you from the land of the Piscataway peoples, also known as Baltimore, Maryland, USA. And, I'm despite the craziness that is our world right now, and it really is, I feel so alive because I made a decision to stop playing the treadmill game of capitalism and walk in my calling and purpose. And so I know things are bad, but I still feel very alive because I'm doing something that feeds me and keeps me alive. So alive and thriving and glad to be here. DC?
Hey, thank you, Dante. I'm Reverend DC Fortune. I'm coming to you from the banks of the Susquehanna River in Northumberland, Pennsylvania, central Pennsylvania, and the ancestral lands of the Susquehannock people, who white colonizers managed to completely eradicate from this place. I am a fat, white, almost thoroughly bald trans man with glasses and a gray sweater, and I'm sitting in my office at work in front. I'm in front of the quilt, which is behind me, which came with the office. It's absolutely lovely. And the weather here is like, it started out this morning as sunny, but it's like turned to ick, because it's still March. I mean, it might be the equinox, but it's still March, and March exerts itself in particular ways. Mankato, Minnesota had a blizzard yesterday, so I expect we on the East Coast are going to be getting their used weather, which means it has, sort of gone through some stuff before it gets to us. It'll probably come out as rain and crap and crud, but whatever. And it's yesterday it was nice here too. It was like 70-ish and sunny-ish, and today we're reminded again that it's March.
It's true. It's true, and it has snowed on my daffodils before many times.
The first robin always gets snowed on.
But listen, it's going to snow on my daffodils, and I'm going to complain about it.
Okay, that's fair. All right, that's how you know it's spring. All right.
And this is why, as much as I love spring, and as much as like the first crocus blooming in my yard is my new year, it is not my favorite season because it is also my complaint season.
Well, I wasn't clear that we were in spring until, what's this, Thursday? So Tuesday morning, I woke up and there was an itch like deep down in my throat.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what is that? And I was like, oh, shoot. It's mid-March, and I haven't added my second allergy medicine because I'm allergic to almost all weather and all fruit trees, and I live in the DC area, so these things will kill me. And I was like, get thee to the pharmacy and get my extra antihistamine, or I will be sick. So now that I'm clear that spring is here and I've got my second antihistamine on deck, I'm better.
Yeah, last year it became clear that my daughter also had seasonal allergies in the spring, so like I need to start her on Flonase in enough time for it to be kicked in by the time the trees do their thing. So we've started it. Like it needs to build up in your body a couple days. So, I am in the mood to complain. So I'm gonna complain.
Fortunately, the world is providing you with ample opportunity. It's an embarrassment of riches, Michael.
So, what was it? Family Guy that had what really grinds my gears, right? What's really grinding my gears today are virtual assistants on phones that should be answered by people.
Mm-hmm.
You all can relate to this. This morning, it was my doctor's office, which has now replaced its. It was an automatic menu, but one of the options was if you want to leave a message for the nurse, press whatever it was for blah blah blah, right? And it has replaced that entire automatic menu with "Hi, I'm your virtual assistant. What can I help you with?" And
not a
fuck
damn
if
thing.
you don't have to like spend 10 minutes convincing the virtual assistant to connect you to someone. 1212. And what made me say fuck is the virtual assistant on my doctor's office phone. And like, I can't, I don't need to talk to them right now, but I need to leave a message for the nurse who can get to me whenever she can. Right? Like, I'm not picky about that, right? Take a day. But I don't want to have to convince your AI phone system to connect me to your voicemail. That's all. I had to get that off my chest. I do not want to have to convince AI voice systems to connect me.
Right. Michael and I, Dante, I don't dare make any assumptions about your age, but I know that Michael and I are old enough to remember a time when people who shouted at machines were considered really problematic. And yet here we are shouting at machines all the damn time.
Well, DC, you know what they say about black. Good black don't crack. And this is 50 plus.
Okay, I wasn't gonna make any assumptions. I learned the hard way.
Don't let the smooth skin fool you, DC. Don't let it fool you.
Yeah, so you remember, right? People who talk to machines, like, what the hell's wrong with you? You're talking to a machine.
Oh yeah,
right?
I hate all virtual assistants. I hate them all.
I'm sorry, artificial intelligence is just not that intelligent yet.
So, did you see the news item that now the option to keep Amazon Alexas from recording your information and sharing it is no longer an option? It's automatic. Like, yes, shock and awe, right? And people kept saying, "Why don't you have an Alexa?" I was like, I don't want that crap in my house. I said, I have Google and I have an iPhone. They have enough about me.
It is bad enough that Siri is listening to me. Alexa,
right? Same here. I just always feel bad for the poor, like, FBI person that's got my case, has to listen to my phone conversations. Jesus, like, that's like, you've got to screw up bad to be like assigned to my case, right? Like, oh my God, how many recipes? How many times is this person going to shout at phones? Yeah, like, oh, gee whiz.
So, do we have anything to round up in the Unitarian Universalist world? I don't know.
Should we talk about the need to tell people to hide their light under a bushel?
Let's.
And play small?
Please, let's. And we're going to talk about this. This is the VUU equivalent of vague booking.
Yes.
Right now.
Yeah.
Clearly, because I'm okay. I'll be the vague. Yeah, because I'm.
But it is it is problematic and a pattern that our institutions like try to put people in these little pre-made boxes that don't fit them, and so they have to like be made
Okay.
small. People are asked to
Okay.
make themselves small,
Yeah.
make themselves into, our most boring white forebears.
And I know it's real because when I came on to the CLF, I'm sure Reverend Michael got sick of me because I was like, "Are you sure this is like this is me and this is what I do and this is how I do it? Like, are you sure you want me to? Be yourself." And I'm like, "Are you sure?" Because and he was like, people get enough whiteness from me, so go for it. Just be right. But I always kept questioning.
I literally said that in a supervision meeting with Dante. Like, there's enough whiteness coming out of this.
Yeah, exactly.
And I kept
get it.
asking, like,
I get it.
Like, are you sure?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Look
Look around. God knows we need something that's not white.
Have you had enough yet? I'm like, oh no, please.
So I do know it's real, and and perhaps this is a challenge of a plural tradition, but it's really only a challenge when what you really want is in what we would call assimilation.
Mm-hmm.
When your plurality really is a ruse for assimilation.
Ooh, ow, zing, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which, and those of us who live and occupy marginalized identities and spaces know what that's like. People say, "Oh, you're so welcome here." But ultimately, you keep getting subtle and not so subtle signs about you're welcome to begin to behave like the rest of us. You're welcome to begin to do it as we do it here. Only.
Right.
You might be more welcome if you weren't so filling the blank. Right?
Oh, Jesus God, right?
You might be more welcome if you weren't so black. You might be more welcome if you weren't so queer.
You might be more welcome if you weren't so sex positive.
Again, me and, and like, well, Michael knows, if anyone knows me knows I am churchy through and through. I have communion wine and wafers flowing through my veins. That's how churchy I am. But, in the traditions in which I was raised, it was not the kind of, it nurtured me into the person I am, and I'm very grateful. Mm-hmm. But there's some ways in which where I'm at now just doesn't seem to fit. And I keep saying to my colleagues, there can be no Black liberation without Black bodily autonomy, without gendered liberation for Black bodies, without sexual liberation of Black bodies. And so
without embodied worship, embodied music.
Your liberation talk is hollow.
The liberation of Black disabled bodies.
Oh, see, Michael, you way in the future. We haven't even got to queerness. Now you talk about you really living in 2076.
I'm good with that. Beat me out of here, right into 2076.
Right? Do we get flying cars by then? Because that's what I might know.
And again, and I know it's not unique to Black spaces, and I understand the assimilationist behaviors allowed some people to not die. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not a person who was like, oh, assimilation, blah, blah, blah. Like, there's a way in which if my ancestors had not learned to approximate certain forms of whiteness, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be. It was
code switching.
Yes, switching is survival. Assimilation,
code switching
right?
is survival.
The problem is when you forget it was meant to be strategic assimilation, and not mandatory. That it was strategic, right? It's a strategy. But sometimes we lose the lessons around the strategy, and we just think that's what it is.
Well, and that it exists is one thing, but that it's expected, right, is the problem. Right? Like, okay, you want to assimilate to survive, like, or you need to assimilate to survive. I get that. And our institutions, if we're going to be truly addressing the white supremacy at the in our foundations, we need to create a culture that stops expecting people to do that.
Right. Can I talk about cast iron? Dante, you may appreciate this. Michael, I don't know your history with cast iron. Growing up, cast iron is like the gold standard for cooking, right? Like the best things in this world come out of cast iron. And if you get a new cast iron pan and the first thing you cook in that is going to be a whole pile of chorizo, right? A year from now, you make scrambled eggs, you're going to taste the chorizo in that cast iron pan, right? In those eggs, because that's how the pan was seasoned. The pan of Unitarian Universalism was seasoned with white supremacy. Okay, it was immersed in that. And the way to unseason a pan so that you don't taste the chorizo in every goddamn thing you cook is you have to strip it down and expose it and get it out of there and season it with something more appropriate, something that's more inclusive, something that will add flavor but not oppress and not exclude other things. And if you don't do that, it's always going to taste like that thing you don't want. And that's what our faith has been, the best foundational seasoning of our faith.
I'm just going to say, as sad as it is to have to take the steel wool to your cast iron pan, like sometimes, I mean, my favorite was JD Vance. JD Vance puts his cast iron pan in the dishwasher.
Oh my
God! Someone who had this sign at a rally or something. And everybody who cooks in cast iron knows exactly what that means.
Right. And in Vermont, they said JD Vance skis in jeans.
and black people and Southern Americans everywhere are like,
yeah. Yes, exactly.
No, but we love. Nicole says no throwing shade on chorizo. We love chorizo.
We love chorizo.
It just and you can't season your cast iron pan with olive oil either. You have to season it with something that all the flavors go with.
Can play with. Right. Yeah. You need something light that is not going to make some other flavor bitter or sour or overpower it. You want something that will be able to showcase the flavors you put into it. But that means it's like when to season a wok, it's the same thing. You have to put a light oil on it so that everything you cook in it does not. You ever have canned fruit that you put in, like you open a can, you take some out and you put it in the fridge and you take it out and it tastes like can, like the rest of, right? Same sort of thing. You don't want your dinner to taste like the pan, right?
Right.
So,
you better preach this cast iron sermon.
Oh, I do on the regular. And so what I think we're doing as an overwhelmingly white faith is, and I've used this before. There was a 1937 short film by the Three Stooges, okay, called oh, never mind. I can't remember what it is. But the premise of the film was the boys are going west to find their fortune, and Curly ends up backing into a cactus, and his backside's all covered with these spines, right? And the two other brothers are trying to remove the spines. And one's got, because it's slapstick, one's got these giant pair of pliers, and one's got this giant pair of scissors. And the one with the pliers is going poink, and he screams every time he pulls one out. And the other guy is going, no, you just do it like this with the scissors, see, and then it doesn't show. You see where we're going with this?
They left the spine in with the scissors.
Exactly.
That's right. I know. Like I've never seen this, but I know.
Right? And if we're gonna be able to function and move and dance and sit and do all that stuff, we got to get it out at the root. But we've spent 50 years or more cutting it off at the surface and saying, see, it's all better. And the problem is collectively we have to be willing to engage in the yanking out of the quills. And collectively, I don't know that we've got that critical mass yet to do that. We're getting there, but you see what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah, and a couple good points in the chat. I'm combining Nicole and T. Wegner. Nicole talks about spending 30 years assimilating on the continent and then kind of doing it so long that you forget that that's what you're doing. And then T. Wegner like, and then you put the pressure on other people like you who occupy your sort of positionality to do it because you had to do it. And I think that's that's real. That's a real phenomenon that happens in the world.
Yeah, log cabin Republicans.
So we've reached the halfway point in the VUU today.
And we have successfully avoided the topic we were going to talk about.
Oh, well, I'm bringing us back. I'm bringing us back because Dante and I yesterday in our weekly meeting, we meet weekly, at which point Dante asks me if I really meant it. and I assure him that I did. Honestly, enough whiteness right here. We had a dance party in our weekly supervision meeting, and we thought that the VUU needed a dance party today. It's not long, and it's a dance song, and so I queued it up on our screen for LJ Williams, our broadcast producer, who's behind the chalice. Today to give us a little dance.
Government takeover. I want to talk about it, but I've been late for work. And if you say, wait a minute, who we have to stop this? We have one, but you didn't want that lady in office. Hostile government takeover. Hostile government. Nigerian prince, damn, surprise, surprise, ended up being a white man. Oh, I just want to know what the hell do I do? I drink. And if you say, wait a minute, who we have to stop this? We have one, but you didn't want that lady in the office.
Government takeover.
So we're going to put the link to that YouTube video in the chat if you want to watch it later. If you just need to laugh a little or to dance a little.
See, I'm Irish. You couldn't tell because it all happens from the waist down.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We just thought the reality of the scammer who was pretending to be a Nigerian prince, turning out to be an orange person, it was just too real. And that we could have we could have stopped this, except that the person who was said to do it was too black and too female.
Boy, white men are so fucking fragile.
Now, DC, but I'm going to argue that, but it's the white women that keep.
Well, true.
Right?
Yeah.
Because,
right.
Okay, we live in a patriarchal society, so at least the white men I get. But white women, I'm so confused.
White women are afraid that if they are shown up by a black, like everybody has this weird need to be better than somebody else, right? And white men understand themselves to have been emasculated by the Obama administration, which was so goddamn successful in a bunch of ways, so fucked up in a bunch of ways, but still. And now white women are like, oh, we are not going to get shown up. Right? That's I like, there's a piece of me that says that was, and I say this as somebody who used to be a white woman, right? And who, like, the State Department still thinks I am, because of my passport. But yeah, it's about fragility. It's about, I don't want to be shown up by somebody that I think I'm superior to.
And like, what tickles me is, because when Hillary ran, black women held their freaking noses. We're gonna give this to y'all.
Yep.
We're gonna let you have this one. We're gonna give it to you. Black women still showed up. But when a black woman was on the ticket, y'all was like, screw that. Like, wow.
So Nicole Thibodeau writes, this is really good. White women have a history of wanting not to be equal, but to be on top, like the white men. And I think that's even more nuanced. I think white women understand that they can manage white men much better than white men understand that they're being managed. Right? And I think if they felt that they were being undermined, they would lack the authority in their relationships that they currently enjoy, which is absolutely on the down low, right? Getting the husband to do what they want to do.
So then, DC, doesn't that mean that white women keep choosing race over gender?
Absolutely.
Okay. I just want to make sure that was what I was getting, but I didn't want to.
I mean, they keep choosing what keeps them proximate to power.
Yeah.
Which is white supremacy.
Right? Like during suffrage, right? They sold it as, do you want black men to have a vote over white women's bodies? You know? And so they had to do what was necessary to make sure that white women got the vote before black men did. And that was part of Lucretia Mott and Susan B. Anthony and that whole crowd. That was a conscious tactical decision. And the fact that black women still voted for Hillary, I feel like I want to apologize for everybody for being such idiots. But you know, I'm so sorry we keep fucking up.
Well, and we have folks in the comments, Tanya and Nicole are having a great conversation over in YouTube. If you all are not in YouTube for this live conversation between Tanya and Nicole, they're making some really great points that we can't keep up with. But this notion of this white supremacy is then used to oppress other people, to keep other people marginalized from that power as well.
And another nuance of this, in particular, you see it around women's suffrage, which, by the way, many people don't know, black women weren't trying to join. They were leaders of the original effort.
That's right.
To get suffrage for women. So, they kept them out. No. They co-opted.
They threw them out.
Yeah, they co-opted their movement. But white men have shown historically that they will side with black men to keep their own women oppressed.
Yeah.
So suffrage is the best example. They were like, we'd rather let black men vote than let white women vote. Like they've shown us that's a choice they're willing to make. Because I mean, again, we still ain't considered fully human, culturally at that point. But white men were willing to say, well, we'll let black men vote, but we ain't gonna let white women vote. Hillary, like, we'll take food. We'll not like men and still vote for them, but this woman, no, we don't like her. We like over and over and over again. And it's like,
well, because the whole system, it involves, like, when some group of people get just too proximate to the power, they have to be slapped back, right? They have to be smacked down. And the closer you get to the power, the harder that smackdown is.
Yep.
And now the leopards are eating everyone's faces.
Maybe that's for next week.
We'll get Francesca Ramsey singing "The Leopards Eat My Face" next week. We need to invite her. Find out if anyone out there in Viewland knows Francesca Ramsey. Could you please invite her to be on The View? Could you please tell her that there are a group of really funny, well-informed, opinionated, sassy, cursing people who just want to spend an hour with her?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I tried for Janet Mills a couple weeks ago when I was up in Maine, but she's booked solid.
Yeah, I would just plots if the governor of Maine came on our show. I would plots right over. I'd just fangirl at Francesca Ramsey.
Now, is plotsing flop sweating, or is it
it's fall over in a faint in a most undignified way?
Okay.
And make that sort of noise when you hit the ground.
I'm from Brooklyn. These words are just part of my.
I'm a student of words, so I always want to know more words.
So, hostile government takeover. Do we want to talk about what's happening nationally and how we as Unitarian Universalists are responding to that?
Or not?
Like, we got 20 minutes. We can do that, right?
I think we should.
Now, I think I'm the youngest Unitarian in this circle. I've only been actively in the faith since 2016. Okay. So I would like to ask y'all a question as people who've been around longer. Do we actually have a history? Because I don't think most faith traditions, particularly in America, Western traditions do, but I want to ask, of really addressing the issue of empire and empire building.
Ish. Well, I know. All right, so listen to this. In the 1970s, the UUA or the Beacon Press published the Pentagon Papers. Okay. And there was a time when those papers were being physically smuggled from one person's house to another person's house to another person's house to keep the FBI from doing that. And to this day, the president of the UUA gets audited every year personally by the IRS because Nixon got his panties in a knot. Okay. So there's that. That's worth something. Okay. There are there are a handful of UU individual congregations that gave up their 501c3 status during the Vietnam War so that they could speak out about political things. We look at the work of Dr. King and You know, we talk about James Reeb as a martyr. But those are the standouts. You know, go ahead, Michael. You know more.
So I'm hearing Dante's question differently, and Dante, you can tell me how you meant it. I think we have a long history of addressing injustice.
Okay.
I mean, we can go back to trying to abolish slavery in the 19th century,
Right.
addressing injustice. And that's different to me than addressing empire.
Okay.
Right? It's different to me because we have used our privileged place as part of the power structure of the empire to address injustice, which is what people with privilege have to do, right? It's what, like, good. But we have never, as a faith, I guess the closest we got was when we repudiated the doctrine of discovery. But even that was words. Yes, we repudiated the doctrine that said, like, white Europeans were entitled to this land and entitled to enslave people, but we never. It's hard. I mean, we still haven't adequately made reparations for running Indian boarding schools in Utah. Did we start that? Yeah, we started it, but we were part of the empire when we ran Indian boarding schools in Utah. And, you know, I mean, like, opposing the war in Vietnam to me was the right thing to do. And I don't think we got into the fact that that war was a consequence of empire, of the United States imperial tendencies. I mean, like, Martin Luther King was making those connections when he was assassinated, right? The connections between economic justice and empire and militarization and war, and, like,
and communist principles of economics that uplifted, you know, the workers. But go ahead.
And he was killed for it.
Right.
Let's just be, you know.
Oh, absolutely.
He was assassinated for making those connections because those connections were dangerous. But I don't think those connections were part of the mainstream in Unitarian Universalism ever. I mean, I think that there have been people who've made those connections.
I asked the question because I've been reading a book by Alan Bozak, who's a South African Black theologian, Black liberation theologian, been around pretty early on in the movement. And his book is called Children of the Waters of Meribah. And one of his critiques is that Black liberation theology did not listen to the women, which is why we're in this situation, and that we did not adequately address issues of empire in Black liberation theology. And it's a really powerful book. But he was the first time I heard someone even mention, like, empire in this way. I was like, oh wow, yeah. And I'm not sure if many faith traditions, particularly Western ones, have really dealt with empire, right? We talk about empire, like, if you come out of a tradition that uses you know, the Hebrew Bible or the Christian Testaments, there's definitely interpretations about empire, whether in the Jesus story or in the story of ancient Israelites or Hebrews, depending on what era we're talking about. But in the contemporary sense, I'm not sure we do. Okay. And
What's the children of the waters of what?
Meribah, Meribah, Meribah.
A-H. Okay. Okay.
Alan Bozak, ALLANBOESAK.
B-O-Z-S-A-K. Okay, that's totally not how I would have pronounced. Thank you.
Yeah, that's why I remember it, because I was like,
I was like,
but it's a
yeah.
really, really powerful book.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So, and right now we've got a hostile takeover. And what do we do about it? What do we do about it?
I mean, you know, for so long. So here's the empire, right? Like, I think a lot of Unitarian Universalists are still hoping that the courts are going to save us from this. Right? And you laugh because it's absolutely ridiculous, because the courts are the courts of the conquerors. They are the courts. They are part of the empire. Right? They took over the courts before they took over the presidency.
Thank you, Mitch McConnell.
Right. And that was on purpose.
Yep.
And so, you know, there are going to be some judges who try and stop it, like, you know, the judge that ruled that we weren't allowed to send Venezuelan migrants with documentation, who had not actually been accused or convicted of anything, to El Salvadorian prison camps to do forced labor.
So here's another piece of that. You remember the book Animal Farm?
Yes.
At one point in the book, there's a pair of dogs that have a litter of puppies, and they are handed over to one of the pigs who are sort of the elite in this system. And they're mostly forgotten about for a while, until later on there's some sort of kerfuffle, and suddenly the dogs, these now adult trained vicious police dogs, are brought out to put down any challenge to the authority. And I'm remembering in the 1980s when skinheads were making a lot of noise, and then suddenly they went away in large number. And that was because nationally, they made it a strategy to grow out their hair and infiltrate the military and the police academies. And the police
You mean like the Nazi skinheads?
Yeah. And that's what they did. They understood that they were making no progress as, you know, skinny white boys with poor social skills, right? They were making no political progress that way. So what they did was they joined the place where they could make the most difference later, where their tendencies for violence would be nurtured and expanded, and their skills would be expanded. And so now we have a police force that is incredibly militarized, and we have a military that is more toxic than it's ever been, and they're ready to do the things that the fascist wants them to. You see that? Like, the puppies have been brought away, hidden away, and retrained.
Yeah.
And now they're coming out, and they're being used. I see Dante thinking hard.
Well, you know, I like to do thought experiments, and this is not a new one. You know, it has popped up historically over time, and every time it pops up, usually someone dies who utters it, right? Because it's like, if you really don't want Black folks over here, let us all go. Let us pack our shits and go somewhere else. I'm not sure if America really wants, like, the rhetoric is, but you know, because we have the spending power of a nation, like of a small nation. So just like the migrants, you voted for them to be deported, but now everybody's sitting around looking like, who's gonna pick this fruit? So it's like,
but I want my lettuce in February.
Yeah. So like, if all the black people just disappeared tomorrow,
We'd be so
would America be great again?
Oh, hell no. There are, I believe, sadly, horrifyingly, that there are people who do believe that. There are people who do believe that. They're idiots and they're wrong. And they are steadfastly wedded to that opinion and determined not to change it despite whatever facts may be thrown in their direction. So I will call them idiots. I will call them actively stupid. Like there's ignorance, which doesn't know, and there's stupid, which refuses to learn. Okay? And they're on the side of stupid in that one.
Well, which is why I always say that for me, white supremacy and other dominant ideologies are not belief. They're not about belief. They're about faith. Because only faith allows people to hold on to something despite facts. Only faith. Only faith. And there are people, like, you can give them all the facts.
Delusion.
Well, but many people say there's a fine line between faith and delusion.
Oh, true that.
Yep. But because faith says, I believe in spite of. In spite of what I see, I believe that I'm holding on to this vision, this aspiration, this whatever, right? And I think that a lot of this stuff that people are doing, if you look at how people respond, they're responding like people of faith respond when their tradition is challenged. Like, oh, you're not gonna snatch my tradition from me. Like, this is real, and I'm gonna fight you tooth and nail to the end. Because that's not just ignorance. That's just not like lack of information. Because people are like, well, it's because we don't know each other. Black people have been mammying white people's children since the antebellum South. It's not because black folks and white folks don't know each other. You say we were lazy. You say we were inhuman, but you had us cooking your food, mammying,
nursing your baby.
Right, literally having my great-grandmothers nurse your babies on their breast. If we were just animals, why didn't you let them suck off the cow's teeth? Like, so all of that was rhetoric. None of that was real. Because it wasn't about that. It was about, we need people to believe in this like a faith so that they won't bristle at the horror and violence of it. And I feel like I've got us off subject, and I'm sorry.
No.
No.
It's absolutely true. And we all know, anyone who studied race and racism knows that race is a social construct that was designed to divide people into superior and inferior. And any social construct only works if people believe it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if people believe that it's true, and that construct comes with consequences.
And we see it now with migrant workers, right? Like, there's all this horrible rhetoric around them. But we would have never let those folks over the borders and do that work, and in the first place, if we really believe those things.
That's right.
Right. They are uniquely positioned to both be lazy drains on society and taking white people's jobs.
Right. Well, and I've seen memes going around. Like, do we think that trans women are too strong to play sports or too weak to serve in the military?
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
like,
pick one, kids.
Because
Pick
both
one.
of those things can't be true. But the nature of trying to make people into other is
Yep.
that you come up with opposing things that convince people who are so desperate to hang on to their proximity to power that absolutely opposing things can be true at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's not just that they're not true, it's just that they can't actually be true at the same time.
Right. Yes.
Right? Like,
and how do you reach somebody who has made that commitment to that impossible thing?
Now, I'm going to say an unpopular opinion. I don't think you can.
Do.
I don't think you can. I think, so I'm going to call it the stove is hot syndrome from when I was growing up. And in my family of origin, you know, again, when I have a psych degree undergrad, you know, Pavlovian, you know, don't touch the stove, it's hot, right? And you, every time I get near the stove, there's a don't touch the stove, it's hot. And I remember I was at my grandmother's house one day and I went ahead and touched that hot stove anyway, pop. And then I'm like, ah, and you know what my response was? That's what your ass get. I told you that stove was hot. I bet you won't touch it again. Now, some people be like, that's harsh. That's not how you should raise children. But you know what?
A hot stove is the best teacher.
I never touched a hot freaking stove again because I learned my lesson. And I feel like we're in the era where people are learning that shit is hot for themselves because people are self-absorbed. And it's like, until I know it, until it actually hurts me, I just, I don't get it. And unfortunately, I think that's the space we're in. And some people are learning. The white farmers are learning shit the black farmers have known for a long time. White homeowners are learning shit that the black homeowners have learned for a long time. You know, I just think it's.
So I don't think this is a new condition, though. No, I think it is. I think it is a part of the human condition, which is, you know, humans operate on the same laws of physics as everything else. You take the path of least resistance, right? Unless you are immobile, you are inert unless acted upon by some outside force, and you continue in motion until some outside force stops you, right? And so the hot stove is the thing that stops you. And I think it makes it hard to be a humanist some days when we're not really more coherent or intelligent than rocks, but sometimes that's it.
Nicole says a rose bush is a self-correcting situation.
Well, and there we go.
Dante, I totally need to have lunch with you in Baltimore.
They're yanking out the white rose bushes from the rose garden at the White House, by the way. So I don't know if you know this, but Melania Trump, the last time she was first lady,
took out Jackie Kennedy's rose bushes.
All the beautiful pink and red roses with white roses. And now they're just replacing them with a patio because not even white roses have thorns. Even the white roses have thorns, so now they're just going to be a patio there. Everything is a metaphor.
I was like, I don't know what else we need to say. Like, that's it. That's it.
It is 1 minute to 1.
Take care of yourselves, people. We need to give them something to do before we leave this.
No, laugh and dance and find your joy. Joy is an act of resistance.
Hydrate
and keep at it. And find the people who are resisting and resist with, like, in whatever capacity you can give it. Different ones of us can do different things, right?
Love yourself and your people to life.
That's right.
We love you, and never forget that we love you.
That's the truth, right there.
We love you.
Are they childproofing the White House?
Yeah, they're childproofing the White House because there's a toddler in the Oval Office.
Thanks, everybody.
I love you.
We'll see you next week.
Oh, God.
Bye, everybody.
Special thanks to those of you who give generously to this ministry. It is because of you that this ministry is possible. You can click the link in the description to give now or visit clfuu.org/give for more information. We hope you will join us next week for another episode of The VUU.